Something about King Charles' speech to the US Congress didn't sit right with a lot of people, not because of what he said, but because of what he or the speech represents. A British monarch standing in the halls of American power being applauded. And he, of course, addressed a joint session of Congress. For some, that's history coming full circle. For others, that's raising serious red flags. Let's be clear. This wasn't just another diplomatic speech. The United States was literally born out of a rejection of the British monarchy. This is a story that fought a war to break free from royal control because they understood that the monarchy, all systems of monarchy, represent despots. They are despots. And it doesn't matter how fluent, how educated, how sophisticated, and the tone of the king's voice. Nothing matters if we understand the history of European monarchy and the monarchies in general, whether they were in Africa or they were in Europe or Asia. All monarchies are systems of despotism. Very important that you understand that. But we're living in a world now where people just like surface level thinking, and they like to look at people who they think wield system of power. And that is what we are moving right now back to the dark ages, where people like to be controlled. And when they see systems of power, then they admire them. So we're seeing now another fascination that is unfolding with this British monarchy because they do give us this illusion of sophistication. But behind the scenes, how do these people behave? And if those of you who followed, Princess Diana and other people, you understand that they can be ruthless. Ruthless worse than the people who practice criminality on the streets, right? But we think that these people, and if you follow the Epstein case too, you should understand that. And all of these things are connected. Okay, so all when they're behaving as if Prince Andrew has been isolated, that is just for the goyim, people who are unlearned and unsophisticated to understand. These are just playing games with you, brain mind control, that you cannot be able to assess really what is happening and the powers that wield influence behind the scenes. Before I even go on to the historical, the understandings of the British monarchy on US culture, let me just show you a brief clipping, a snippet of uh, John Maxwell, very educated man about the history of the United States. I'm going to show you what he has to say, what he is actually saying about the British monarchy, right? And its influence. And Rome. That Rome controls all of the monarchies, whether they be in Europe, in Africa, in Asia. Rome controls them. So let me just give you an insight. But let's look at what he's saying about Europe. He was not speaking about Asia nor Africa. So let's be clear on that. So let me now open up. Let me see if I could go down here. I'll go back up. Yeah.
Hey guys, I wanted to address some of your. And what is the exact connection between the Queen, the House of Windsor, and the Catholic Church and that whole? How do those institutions?
What Rome has dominated Europe for 2,300 years, first under the Roman Empire and then under the Vatican. And for 2,300 years, Europe has dominated the planet. So therefore, all roads lead to Rome. And so that's why, again, when we were talking about the Jewish thing, the Jews are not doing anything near whatever's going on out there. Don't worry about the Jews. You better look at the Vatican. There's where the power is.
Absolutely.
The Holy Father, nothing holy in Rome. The royalty will tell you that they have a divine right. We mean divine right. That implies God put you there. No, divine right comes from the idea that the Pope anointed you. The Pope said you could be prince, so now you have a divine right. Why? Because he represents God. You say, what God? Because that Pope's tiara he wears is a fish head. The Roman Catholic Church is worshiping an old god named Dagon, D-A-G-O-N, Dagon. Dagon is the god of the Roman Catholic Church, but happily most people have no idea who Dagon was. I have no idea what I'm talking about. So everything is fine until you wake up one day and start doing your homework and find out that the Roman god Dagon is the god of the Roman Catholic Church today.
And what is the exact connection between the Queen and the House of Windsor?
Yes. So that is a very, very good analysis. But let's listen to another of his clippings that you need to know, you need to understand. Because, we are miseducated. The miseducation of the entire world. And people are just walking around thinking that, oh, you're talking and you're a joker. Am I? Until the things unfold before your eyes and you've got to deal with this despot, right? Or these despots, I should say. But the chief despot in the world at the moment is the Roman Catholic papacy.
You don't? What do you have? No. What do you figure? You have to fill out a particular kind of form, send it to the Secretary of State.
Let me see if I could start over.
Okay, when you walk into a courtroom and they call your name.
Let me go back to
they go to court. I don't care what your criminal or what kind of a crime you committed. I don't care how big it is. You don't have to go to court. You don't? What do you have? No. What do you figure? You have to fill out a particular kind of form, send it to the Secretary of State, and say to the Secretary of State, I wish to settle out of court. You can settle anything out of court. Yeah. Of course. If Ford Motor Company is suing General Motors, they can.
I don't think this is what I wanted to have shown to you. Let me see if I could go back and but this is something he's just developing his whole story that the entire system is Rome dominated, as he suggests. All roads lead to Rome. And there is another video that I wanted to show, and I seem not to have had it up on the screen when I started the program. But let me see if I could get you to understand. Now, I did also send some of you the hierarchical systems of power in which the Vatican is at the top. You have the Black Pope at the top. You have the White Pope, followed by many other people. We have the monarchies, the Rothschilds, the banking system, and we are the public are at the bottom. We are the Goyim, right? They don't consider us to be important people at all. Right? Even though you might participate in elections and stuff like that, you are, in fact, a nobody. And that is what you have to understand. You are a nobody. And you have to understand as we move on. Let me see if I could listen to this, what he's saying here. And
when you walk into a courtroom,
it's the same thing that he's saying here.
When you walk into a courtroom, let me give you a quick example. It is written in the Old Testament that my people are dying from a lack of knowledge.
Yeah, let me just.
Simply true. Today, people are dying.
Let me just see if I could. This is not it too, but I think this is a clip from him that, or this could be it. This could be it.
Let me give you a quick example about the maritime law, the law of water.
Let me see if I could.
It is written in the Old Testament.
Okay, I thank you for holding on. I hope that I'm not destroying my video for looking at these things, but let me see if I could get you here.
Testament that my people are dying from a lack of knowledge, and that's certainly true. Today, people are dying. They're wasting their lives away because they're ignorant, ill-informed, and unread as to how the world works. And there's another scripture that I think is extremely important that says, where there is no vision, the people perish. Simply meaning that as long as civilization does not understand where we have come from, where we are now, and where is the whole human race going in the future. If you don't have that kind of spiritual vision, then we're going to perish, because all of us are nothing more than sitting ducks in the pond. Unless you understand freedom and where it came from and how it was obtained, unless you start thinking in terms of protecting your rights and your freedoms. The ancient Roman law basically said, there was a maxim in Roman law that says, for he who would be deceived let him. And another maxim in Roman law that says, if you do not defend your rights, you have none.
The truth is hidden in plain sight.
Right. And that is true. And there are some people who don't understand, and many people don't, the systems of power around the world and how Roman Catholicism. So you have people say, yeah, uh, my son or my daughter who attends Roman Catholic Church or Roman Catholic school, they're reading the Bible, but what tools are they using to read the Bible? The Jews also read the Torah, and yet still they were deceived and their temple was totally demolished. Many of them, thousands, died. And Christ was trying to alert them and all the prophets that it was going to happen. And they saw it if they had just read the scriptures with the right, their Torah with the right tools, with the right insights, then they would have not been destroyed. But that is how people are. They don't understand, they don't want to read, so the shortcut is to tell you things like, yeah, they read the Bible too. But what tools are they reading the Bible? What insights are they reading the Bible with? Are they reading it with the correct insights? Because yes, Rome teaches religious education in its schools, but it's going to lead towards the supremacy of the Roman Catholic papacy, that the Bishop of Rome, the Pope, is the head of the church. He is the vicar of Christ on earth. And this King Charles represents him. And when they go to Vatican City, whether it's Queen Elizabeth II or King Charles III, all of them have to bow at the feet of the Roman emperor, the Bishop of Rome, the Pope. Okay? So he dominates that system, the system of monarchy in Europe, as he dominates the system of government in the United States. Very important that you understand that. He is the despot of all despots. But, of course, King Charles represents him standing. And it reminded me, for those of you who are big on your history, of the formal visit of Pope Francis, the former Pope of Rome, the former Bishop of Rome, to the United States to address then a joint session of Congress. And that is what this king has just done right there in the United States, right before our unsuspecting eyes. Now, let's be clear. This wasn't just another diplomatic speech by King Charles III. The United States, as we said, was literally born out of a rejection of the British monarchy. You have to go back to 1776. 13 American colonies declared independence from King George III, accusing him of tyranny and abuse of power. And notice that King Charles in his speech said that this is a city, that's Washington, D.C., the city of the two Georges, right? That wasn't just a political disagreement. It was a complete rejection of monarchy itself, which the British has not given up. Then came the Revolutionary War. Thousands died to establish a system with no king, no crown, no inherited rule, no religion as head of state. And even after independence, tensions didn't disappear overnight. The War of 1812, another conflict between US and Britain, proved that this relationship was far from friendly in its early years. So this idea that a British monarch is now welcomed into Congress with applause and standing ovations, historically, that's a massive shift. Massive indeed. Now, the King Charles III made an erroneous statement in his speech that actually, Britain saved the United States from speaking French. Do you know that it was the Haitians? The Haitians, yes, what we call the poorest, what is deemed to be the poorest country in the Western Hemisphere, that literally saved the United States from being run and governed by the French. And they would have been a French-speaking society. Oh, how do you say that? Because if the Haitian Revolution if the Haitian Revolution had not been successful, it meant that France was going to challenge the United States if they had won Haiti, and Haiti was their prized colony, raking in hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars per annum. That small colony of Haiti. So they were a prize colony, and had they won that colony during that Haitian Revolution, then their next attempt was to dethrone the United States of America. And that is on the records of history. But people don't read. So they would listen to King Charles making this erroneous statement and think that that is true. It's not true. It's not true. It's the Haitians who should be actually given that sort of, yeah, flowers. Flowers to them. The United States should be ever grateful to them. And instead, it is at this moment seeking to suppress them and their freedoms, and has always been doing that throughout the years. Because when Haiti, after it had successfully earned its independence, not given, but earned its revolution, its independence in 1804, the United States isolated it diplomatically and would have nothing to do with that country. The country that, had it not won the revolution against France, we know that France was going to definitely inflict some wounds on the United States and would have taken over. So that is something that he needs to reread, King Charles. You need to reread your history. Very important that you do that, sir. Now we have this. Now let's fast forward to today. The US and the UK are close allies, and he did say that militarily, economically, politically. They cooperate through NATO, intelligence sharing, and global strategy. But here's where the red flags start to come in. Why now? At a time when global power is shifting, China rising, Russia challenging Western dominance, this kind of high-profile appearance isn't random. It sends a message about unity, but also about alignment. Alignment. Now, we understand that after World War II, Charles suggested that they have been in this relationship for over 80 years, and it should not be gainsaid, neither should it be destroyed. Okay, because the British monarchy, the British Empire, had passed on the baton to the now United States Empire. And that is the common relationship now, that they are empires. And they share that because the United States was not founded to be an empire, it was founded to be a republic. A republic. But it formally renounced that and decided that they wanted to be an empire. And since then, they have been treading on that trajectory and destroying every fabric of the US Republican status, the US Republic. So that is what is fast being demolished right now, the Republican state of the United States, not the empire. And that is the deception of many of the intellectuals who speak here on YouTube, that the United States empire is coming to an end. It is just starting. The republic, definitely, the democratic state of the United States, that is what is being rapidly demolished. And the founding fathers did warn US citizens that wars would be, if engaged, the worst enemy. Wars of liberty. Wars are the worst enemy or enemies of liberty, right? Of your freedoms. So every time a war is being waged, US citizens, you must understand that your liberty is at stake. Your liberty in the United States is at stake. And that is what is now coming to an end. Liberty. Okay? Freedoms. They're saying that they're fighting the wars for your freedom, but they're not doing that. They're doing the opposite, to lead you into another dark age, an age of despotism, an age of tyranny, an age of dictatorship. And I hope that I am being clear here because these are the things that you now need to hear. Make sure you're liking, you're subscribing, and you're sharing the channel. We're living some very dark days, and we think that this is wonderful and this is what is happening, and and you listen to people who are not serious. If you think I'm joking, you are going to see that what lies ahead is no joke. The monarchy today is often described as ceremonial, but let's be honest, symbols matter. The British crown still represents centuries of global dominance, global influence, colonial history, and soft power. So when King Charles stands before US lawmakers, it's not just a man speaking, it's an institution with deep historical roots. Most people will see this as harmless diplomacy, but others are asking, is this just tradition or is it part of a broader effort to reinforce Western unity and influence? Because behind every symbolic moment in politics, there is usually strategy. That is what you have to understand. This isn't about something secret or sinister is happening behind closed doors, while it is too sinister and something happening behind closed doors. It is about recognizing that moments like this are never meaningless. And that is why it's sinister. So they're doing things behind the scenes that you and I are not privy to. But if we understand the dynamics of power, the systems of power in the world, then we will understand. And you must be up on your Bible prophecy because that's the only thing that you're going to be able to understand and to unmask, to untangle what you see happening in the media, because the media is not going to report to you what is happening. Okay? And look at the gross lie that King Charles said about the British Empire saving the United States from being a French-speaking society, when we know that that is not true. It is the Haitians who did that. It's very important that we read and we get, we get an understanding of what is happening in the world. The US didn't just move on from monarchy, it defined itself against it. That's what it did. A nation without a king, right? As a nation without a king. They didn't want a monarchy, even though some people argue, some historians do argue that the founding fathers set up what is still a monarchy. You can do that, you can engage in that conversation and that debate. It's not time for this. So when that same monarchy is welcomed into its highest legislative body, it's worth asking questions. Maybe this is just a sign of how far the relationship has gone from war to what? To alliance, or maybe it's a reminder that power doesn't disappear, it just evolves. And that's what I'm saying. Power never stops, and don't think that we are enlightened because we are not. In fact, our education system is so inferior right now that our people are totally deceived, and that is why we are moving right back into a darker period, darker than what is known as the Dark Ages. Because there's something about arrogance and stupidity when you think you know when thou knowest not. Now, either way, one thing is clear. King Charles addressing Congress is more than just a speech. It's a moment loaded with history and eyes, and maybe I should say yes, a few red flags. It's a moment loaded with history and yes, a few red flags. And we've got to look at the red flags. We've got to look at the fact that Britain wants to coddle the United States and to let it know that nothing is wrong with the monarchical system. Come back. Come back to the days of the monarchical system. And the United States is ready. The citizens are ready for it. They're so polarized. They're so fractured that they're just there, harping over, wow, yes, speak it to Trump. Because that is the mindless sort of the childish, brains that you have there in the United States of America. So they think because those on the other side, they think that when he talked about checking, the executive power, they think that he's talking to Trump and Trump is the king and he's telling them that your power needs to be checked. That's not what he was suggesting, right? That's not what he's suggesting. Because King Charles would love power too. He would love the power that Trump has and is wielding. He doesn't have it, but he would love it. That's the personality of Charles III, King Charles III. Don't you ever believe that King Charles III is better than Trump, okay? Or any of the US presidents. He doesn't have that power, obviously. But he's wanting them, enemy, what you say, enemy likes company, something of the sort. So that is what they want the United States to return to the system of British monarchy, and they seem to be doing fast track on doing that. So what do you think? Is this just diplomacy, or is there something deeper going on here? Let me know in the comments, and let's not even talk about the wars are happening and the fact that he's also supporting those wars and saying that the United States and Britain and all these Western countries, European countries, are there as the guardians of democracy and freedom in the world. That is utter nonsense. That is utter nonsense. History doesn't say that, does not corroborate that, and it doesn't corroborate that for the United States also. These are systems of despotism and tyranny. Okay, so no amount of civility, no amount of sophistication should be able to hide, to conceal the agenda of the system that lies ahead. As I've suggested, the system of republicanism in the United States is fast dissipating. And very soon, US citizens and the world at large are going to wake up to a despotic system of monarchy that will unleash all its angst on the world. And you are going to be surprised because you have never in your life witnessed a system like this. Thank you so much for joining. I hope that you'd like, share, and subscribe. Like the video so that it can be shared with as many people on the platform and begin to read and stop following a group of people and thinking that you know when you do not know.